Hey guys, Rick here. Yeah, sorry. Not cool. Hopefully everybody can get over here. Yeah, okay. All right. It's working now. I am so sorry, guys. We just had all kinds of grief here with getting this to start. I'm going to post really quick. Here's the new link. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, we had 100 people waiting and I made you wait. And I'm really, really, really sorry about that, guys. Okay. So, yeah, sorry. So I'm going to kind of just hang out here for a second and let people join. We lost a lot of our technology. For some reason, my streaming software wasn't working. And then because it didn't work, then it locked up the whole live and I couldn't do it. So I apologize. Feel really bad. The other thing is now I've got to figure out how the heck I'm going to, because I had slides with all of the winners' names on them, and now I got to find that out. So hang on 2 seconds while I work that issue out as well. Okay, guys, I'm really sorry. Okay, so who do we got here? We got 92 people from all over the place, and we were having a great discussion in the chat while everybody was waiting for me. So let me I've got to get the list of winners up so that we can deal with that. Boy, I had this whole great thing for you guys, and this is not working. I'm so sorry. Okay, one more last minute click here. Live events, prize drawing. Okay, now I've got the names. So I apologize, guys. I'm really sorry. And everybody that won, you'll get an email anyways. And so it's not a huge deal. So yeah, I'm sorry. Best laid plans, Donna is saying. So I really, guys, I am so sorry that this didn't come off the way it was supposed to. So, okay. So we'll kind of hurry along here so that everybody gets a chance to hear whether they won the prize and all that kind of good stuff. So first off, thank you very much. This is like literally the biggest, of course, and it all gets messed up. This is the biggest event that we've ever had. We had 580 people sign up for the contest, which is amazing. That's really cool. So thank you. And again, I apologize that we had the technical issues to start out with. So we'll kind of move along and get going on that. The first thing that I did want to do is I wanted to thank Honest Seed Company. So they're the ones that put this seed giveaway together. And I'm just super appreciative of them. They're just giving us these seeds, and this isn't like a paid sponsorship or anything. They just volunteered to do this and to give us $250 worth of seeds. Essentially, we've got 10 $25 gift certificates to give away today. So thank you to them. Make sure that you go check out their website. There's a link down in the description of this video, and I did get that copied over, so it should be there. First off, everybody can hear me and everything. Somebody just like throw everything sounds okay up. I forgot to ask that. Yep. Okay, good. All right. Awesome. Okay. So, let's do this. I'm going to announce, some of the prize winners right now. And I did have a slide where I could show them, and you'll all get an email, but I'm going to announce a few of the prize winners now. And then I've got my seeds to open up. So this is the box of seeds that I got from Honest Seed Company. We'll kind of go through those, and I was going to talk for just a minute about how to care for seeds, kind of teach you guys a little something, and then we'll answer some questions because we do have a lot of people that submitted questions and things like that. So, okay, so let's start off. We'll announce the first 5 of the $25 gift certificate winners. And it looked like hopefully everybody's names will be okay. And again, I had a little slide and everything for you on this, but it's not going to work. So first winner is Sylvia H. Second winner is Edward C. Third winner is Doreen C. Fourth winner is Sonia G. And fifth winner is Linda W. I'm not going to give last names because I want to make sure that we keep that private. So that's first 5. Okay. So we've got 5 more still to come to keep you guys in suspense. All of you win a $25 gift certificate to Honest Seed Company's website. And it's really easy. We will just email you. Honest Seed should be sending those to me a little bit later today. We'll email you the code, and then you can just go on their website, order what you want, and add that code, and it will take $25 off your order. So you get $25 free. So that's the first 5 winners. So let's open up my box. And I did go through this earlier today just to see what I had to make sure that I remembered everything. But I've got a bunch of seeds here that we got from Honest Seed Company. And this isn't the first time that I've gotten seeds from them. But one of the things that really sticks out to me is they do a pretty good job of, and I guess maybe it's because you can see them. They do a good job of making sure that there's plenty of seeds in there. So this is kind of what I've got for this year. And I'll just kind of run through them really quick. Some of them are new to us, like this one. So this is lemongrass. Let me see. Yeah, there you go. This is lemongrass, which this is new to us. We've never grown lemongrass before. We're kind of trying to expand our herb selection and collection a little bit. So growing some lemongrass. This is another fun one that we have never grown before. These are yard-long beans. So these are the big, long, like they grow 12 or 18 inches long. I've never grown those. I've always wanted to. I see the pictures of the arch trellises and everything with those on them, and I've always wanted to grow some. So we're going to give those a go this year as well. Yard-long beans. This one's fun. Look at these seeds. Can you guys see those? Any guesses on what these are? This is actually New Zealand spinach. Okay. So I've grown New Zealand spinach before. I haven't done so for about 5 years. It's not my favorite in the world, but we've got a fun project going this summer. We've got a flower bed that's in the front of our house, and we've always just planted flowers in it. This year, we're going to kind of clean it out. We're taking some rose bushes out, and we're going to actually make it an edible ornamental flower bed. So we still want it to look nice, but it's all going to be edible. And one of the things we're going to use as a ground cover in that bed is New Zealand spinach, because it grows vertically and viney, and it's really cool. So we're going to use that as some of the ground cover in that bed. So it's kind of fun. And New Zealand spinach is okay tasting. It's a warm season crop, so it doesn't taste like regular spinach, and it also is frost sensitive, so it dies in the frost. But it's a fun crop. This one is mosh or corn salad. That's a fall planting for us. That's just a restock for us. And then this is Napa cabbage, which I've grown Napa cabbage a few times before. Haven't done so for quite a few years, and so I'm kind of excited to grow these again and kind of add that back to our repertoire. Oh, this one's fun. So this is actually, can you see there you can see it. This is a sunflower. So this is chocolate cherry sunflower seeds. I love sunflowers. And so we thought we'd try a different color this year. Bloomingdale spinach, which sometimes it's called Bloomsdale longstanding. This is kind of just a restock for us and a, one that we grow every year. Cumin. So I've never grown cumin before. We use a lot of cumin. And so I thought this year we would try and grow some cumin. So we're growing some cumin. Oh, and this one's a lifesaver. So this is sweet banana peppers. And we have had a hard time the last few years finding these in stock. And so this was a lifesaver for me to find these, because this is one of our favorite sweet peppers. And I'm glad to have those. Detroit yellow or golden beets is what these are called. And these are a fun beet that we grow. We love beets. And so we grow 2 or 3 different colors of those. Oh, this is fun. So I've never grown these. Has anybody else grown these? So it's a watermelon radish. And I'm going to actually get these planted. Our weather has warmed up. I'm going to try and get these planted tomorrow, see what happens. So we'll probably have snow still, but radishes can stand up to that. So I'm going to get these going. I've never grown the watermelon variety before. What do we have here? Just some zinnia seeds. Zinnia is one of the flowers that I like to put in our garden, and that'll go in the decorative beds as well. Oh, and this is carrots. So we've grown these before, Scarlet Nantes carrots. Haven't grown them for about 10 years, though, and I decided to try and put them back in the rotation this year. These are going to be my spring carrots. I grow little fingers for my fall carrots. So I'll probably get those planted tomorrow, too. This one's fun. So this is Shaman's blue corn. This is a popcorn. And we don't grow sweet corn around our place anymore because it's so cheap to buy from the farmer's market, which is just down the street from us. And so we use our growing space for corn to grow popcorn because we love homegrown popcorn. This is one that's new to me, San Maranzo tomatoes, which are really supposed to be kind of like a good salsa type tomato, kind of fleshy, like aroma. And so we're going to try those this year. Pak choy, just a refill on that one. Butter crunch lettuce, refill there. This one is black seeded Simpson, also a refill, one that we've grown quite a bit. This is a new one though. This is Little Jim. So this is a head lettuce, kind of a butter crunch type lettuce that we've never grown before. We're going to give it a go this year. And then last on the list is Ruby Red Swiss Chard. So that is my seed order for this year. Everything else that we had, we ended up having enough. So I'm just playing with my other computer here so we can get back up to my list. Okay. Indiana Backyard Gardener has grown, just got some Little Jim. I'm looking forward to growing that one. I've never grown it before, and I read some pretty good things about taste and things like that. So looking forward to trying that one. Okay, so let's see. I did want to talk really quick before we do the last of the prize winners. I wanted to talk about storing seeds. So let me teach you something really quick. I get asked all the time, how long do my seeds last? And most seed packages, you'll see a date and it'll say packaged for 2023. That's not an expiration date, okay? And new gardeners a lot of times don't recognize that fact, that it's not an expiration date. It's actually just the packing date, okay? Most seeds, if stored correctly, and we'll talk about how to do that, most seeds should last you about 5 or 6 years. Okay, now there are a couple of exceptions to that in the vegetable world. One is onions, the other is parsnips. Both of those, for some reason, those seeds just don't stay stable for very long. And so you can only count on those to last for about a year or two. But for the most part, if you store them correctly, your seeds ought to last you about 5 years, maybe even a little bit more. I have some kale that was 8 years old and it was still sprouting and doing well. So they definitely can last quite a while if you store them. So let's talk about how we store them correctly. So 3 things that you need to store your seeds correctly. The first, they need to be cool or cold, okay? Then they need to be dry and they need to be in the dark. So cool, dry, dark. That's the combination that you need to make your seeds last. So here's what I do with my seeds. So first off, my kids laugh about this because this is a wine box and I've literally never even touched wine before. But I found this box and it worked out perfectly. So this is where I store my seeds. You can see they fit. The reason why this box is so nice is because they fit nicely in here. You can get these boxes like on Amazon if you want. And then I've just got some tabs. So this is what I store them in. And you can see first off that it fits the first dark qualification. So they store well in here and they stay in the dark. Then in order to keep my seeds cool in the summertime, I keep them in my house, in my basement, in the utility room, because that's the coldest room in the house that time of year. Never gets above about 60, 65 degrees. And so that's about as cool as I can do. In the wintertime, I actually take my seeds outside and store them in the garage because they're going to be absolutely fine there as long as you can't get any rodents or anything in them, which they stay out of this, then that's perfectly fine. So you need to just figure out in your own situation where you can keep them dry, dark, and cool, okay? Some people will store their seeds in the refrigerator, but you saw this. I don't have room. There's no way that AJ is going to let me keep this in the refrigerator. Just don't have the space. Other people will keep them in the freezer, and both of those solutions are fine. Now, the one thing that I will say is if you are going to store your seeds in the fridge or in the freezer, they need to be in an airtight container because we have to keep the moisture out. And especially that's the case in the fridge. There's a lot of moisture, the humidity's higher, and so we have to keep that humidity out. So if you're going to store them in the fridge, they need to be in an airtight container. Otherwise, cool, dark, dry, and you should be in pretty good shape, and your seeds should last at least 5 years. Last summer, I found some seeds in the back of my box that had got stuffed way down in the bottom, and they were actually some Swiss chard seeds that I had saved myself in 2012. And I was like, I'm going to see if these will grow. And I planted them. They came up just fine. So, again, if you're storing them in a good place, then you should be able to keep those in pretty good shape. Okay. All right. So let's do the last one, or the last winners. So we've got 10 winners total. So 5 more winners that we are going to go through. And then I'll answer some questions. We'll do some Q&A. My daughter is actually monitoring the feed. So if you've asked some questions, there's too much going on. This feed is just flying by. There's 170 people here right now. So the feed is just flying by. So she's kind of been monitoring the feed, and she's going to put those questions in. So if you've got some questions, go ahead and ask those, and let's announce the last winners of the seeds. So again, $25 gift certificates to On a Seed Company. Next one goes to Shelly K, then Diane K, and Diane has a hyphenated name, so it's Diane KB. And then Lindsay R, Janet D, and Christy S. Okay, those are all of our winners. So again, Sylvia, Edward, Doreen, Sonia, Linda, Shelly, Diane, Lindsay, Janet, and Christy are the winners of our gift certificates. So congratulations to you guys. We will get in contact with you within the next day or so. We'll just send you an email with the appropriate discount code for you. So you don't really need to contact us because we have your email address. You gave that to us when you entered. And so we are good to go there. So yeah, congratulations everyone. And again, thank you very much to On a Seed Company for providing those prizes for us. That's very, very, very cool. And I appreciate them doing that a lot. Okay, so let's see. Let's look at some questions here. Now, I did have a few people that pre-submitted questions, and so we'll answer those first, and then we can kind of just tackle any questions that we have in the feed as well. And we still have 150 people here, so you guys, I'll stay as long as you feel like you still have questions, okay? All right, so the first question comes from Stephen, and Stephen lives in North Carolina, and he said, how do I keep my Solex greenhouse cool during the summer to prevent plant damage? And what is the high end of temperatures that plants can tolerate in a greenhouse? Okay. So Stephen, I'm assuming that you are probably like maybe zone 7 or 8 there in North Carolina, which means you probably have some pretty solid summertime temperatures. A lot of people that grow in greenhouses end up not growing in them during the summertime, just because it's so hard to manage those temperatures. But is what you have to do is you want to try and keep those temperatures during the summer about as cool as it is outside. And so you need to open up the doors, open up the windows. You might even need to put a couple of box fans in there to keep the circulation going so that temperature stays down. Upper end temperatures for cool season crops, so things like leafy greens and broccoli and things like that, even root crops, you probably don't want it to be much warmer than 80 degrees for those types of crops in your greenhouse. Once it gets beyond about 80, 85 degrees, then those plants want to bolt, they get bitter, quality goes way down. And so for those cool season crops, that's about your upper end, is about 80 degrees. With the warm season crops, your squashes, your tomato family crops, all of those, you've got a little bit more tolerance there. You can go up to about 90 degrees before they really start to suffer. Now, the plants may survive above 90, but the problem is most, like your tomatoes, your peppers, your eggplant, all of those tomato family crops are not going to set, their flowers are going to drop off in temperatures above about 85 to 90 degrees. And so you're not going to get a lot of fruit growth. You may continue to have the plants thrive in that greenhouse, but really, once you get above about 85 to 90 degrees, even those warm season crops are not going to do fantastic in that greenhouse. And so you may as well just have them outside. They're probably going to struggle outside in that heat too, but that's kind of your upper end on those items. Okay. All right. Violet asked, how important is it to make sure that we don't grow certain plants around one another, or in a spot where certain plants grew the preceding year? So Violet, this is called companion planting. And my initial background, kind of my education background, is through the Master Gardener program and things like that. And they're very much not all that for companion planting because there's not a lot of science behind it. I'm a little softer on that than maybe, the average agricultural college professor might be or something, which I'm totally not that. So I do think that there are some benefits to companion planting, but a lot of the real, things that you hear, there's just not a lot of basis in it. And sometimes you'll hear some conflicts and stuff. I will say this, fragrant herbs, so things like basil or mint, dill, things that put off a lot of smell, are always going to be beneficial planted around other plants because they throw off the pests. So those stronger smells can kind of mask the smell of your tomato plant or something like that, which is why we usually grow basil and tomatoes together. Besides the fact that they taste good in sauce, the basil will kind of help ward off those pests. Flowers like marigolds or nasturtiums will help to confuse squash bugs and vine borers and things like that. And so those are beneficial. The only real don't plant togethers that I know of and that I've had any experience with are beans and onions. Okay. Beans, so anything in the bean family, including peas, don't like onions. They don't like to be planted close to them, and they definitely don't like to follow them. So you want to make sure that in your crop rotation, that you don't have beans following onions. They just don't do well. The only other thing that I've really noticed is potatoes and cucumbers don't particularly like each other either. So whenever I plant potatoes too close to my cucumbers don't do nearly as well. So beyond that, a lot of it is kind of not real science-based and not real solid. And so, there's just, you can go with what you're reading and you should be fine. So there's a lot of information out there about companion planting that you could do. Just recognize that a lot of it probably, I don't worry about it other than beans and onions. I don't worry that much about companion planting. I just plant things and away we go. Okay. Last of the pre-submitted questions is Jake. And I did see Jake here earlier. He says, I'm growing seeds for the first time this year, and I read that fish fertilizer is good to add to plants. Is this the case? Should you do it when you first plant as well, or before they germinate, or what's better, to wait or what? And so the answer to that question is, Jake, number one, yes, normally we call it fish emulsion. And it is good for your plants. It's high nitrogen. So usually you'll get it'll be like a 5-1-1. So the nitrogen is the highest. The problem with it is it smells. So if you're growing in your house, you don't want to use fish emulsion. Trust me. Okay. If you're doing it in a garage or a greenhouse or something like that, then you're probably okay to use fish emulsion. And it's a really good liquid fertilizer. You mix it at half strength, whatever the instructions are, you mix it at half strength for seedlings, and it is a good solid fertilizer. If you are growing indoors, then you need to look at some other options. And there's a ton of different liquid organic fertilizers out there that you can use that are good options that don't have as strong of a smell as the fish emulsion does. So any of those are fine. Now, your second part of your question is, when do you fertilize them? And a seed has everything it needs to grow to its first set of true leaves in the seed. Okay. So we don't start fertilizing seedlings until we see the first set of true leaves. So almost every variety of vegetable, when they first start, they put up what we call seedling leaves. Okay. Those leaves are not true leaves. And so we wait until we see the second set of leaves come out. Okay. Those are our true leaves. And once we see them, then it's time to start fertilizing. So usually that's about a week to 10 days after you've planted is when you're going to start fertilizing. And then you fertilize about every other watering, and you should be in pretty good shape. Okay. All right. So next question is cumin an annual? And I honestly, like I say, this is my first year growing cumin, and so I don't know. Probably not where I live because we have some pretty harsh winters, but I'll have to find that out. I honestly don't know the answer to that. what crops should you plant in the same spot last year and which ones should be moved? My opinion is they should all be moved. Okay, so I'm a big fan of crop rotation. A lot of people will say the science isn't there either, but why not? You know, why not rotate? The reason why we do crop rotation is because, just think about it logically. If we're having a problem with, say, for example, a real problem we have here is leaf miners with spinach. If I grow spinach in the same spot every year, generation after generation of leaf miners is going to drop into the soil and then wake up the next spring, and there's the plants that they need to thrive on. Okay. And so if we rotate away, it makes it harder and it helps to control the pests. Same with like squash bugs or, you know, anything like that. The other reason why we rotate crops is because we can have disease buildups in the soil. So tomatoes would be a great example of that. If I didn't rotate my tomatoes every year, I would lose my tomatoes to leaf curl virus almost every year, because we have that. It's in our soil. A lot of the tomato problems are either bacterial or viral, and they're in the soil. And so if we plant in the same space year after year after year, we end up with buildups of those diseases. So my opinion is you should set your garden up so that you rotate it around and plant every 4 years. You're in a different spot every four, and a 4-year rotation seems to be a pretty good option. Okay. Any way to fix dampening off? Not usually after it's happened. If it hasn't spread to all of your plants, you might be able to stop it. Usually dampening off comes because you're overwatering and the soil, the top layer of the soil is too moist. So one thing that you can do is put a fan. So just buy one of those small fans, not a big box fan, but just one of those little small desk fans, and let that blow over your seedlings. And what that will do is that will keep that top layer of soil drier, and that keeps that fungus down, because that's dampening off as a fungus. That will kind of help keep that fungus down. So that's about the only solution. The other thing you might do is, before you plant, you could sterilize your soil, and you do that by moistening it with boiling water. Okay, is usually the easiest way to do that. Just make sure that you're not using your hands, obviously, in that boiling water. Use a stick or something to stir it, and that will can sometimes kill off some of those funguses as well. Beyond that, once it's happened, it's hard to deal with. Okay, you may just be better off to start over, and separate any plants. If you've got some that have got dampening off, get the other ones away from them. Okay, and get those out of there. How do you protect lettuce from cabbage worms? Mine was massacred last year, so I want to try something different this year. The easiest way to protect, if you don't want to spray, the easiest way to protect all of your plants from cabbage worms is to put a barrier on them. And the way you do that is either with a light fabric row cover, or they're now coming out. I've seen a lot of places that have bug netting. So it's a very tight woven bug netting that you can put over the top of those crops. And then the butterflies, so the little white butterflies that are flying around, that's what causes the cabbage worms. They lay their eggs, and then if they can't get to your plants, then you won't have a problem. So that's the easiest way to keep them off, is just to cover those plants up. And as long as you have either a very light fabric row cover so that the sun gets through, or a tight woven bug netting, that should keep them out. Okay. Are Honest Seeds organic? Some of their seeds I think are organic, others are not. My opinion on organic seeds is organic comes from the way you grow your plants, not particularly the seed. And so I feel like the minuscule possibility of having some pesticide exposure from a seed is not worth the extra cost. So they are obviously non-GMO, because all seed companies are non-GMO, but I think they do sell some organic and some not organic, like most seed companies do. So my personal opinion is organic seeds are not necessary. I honestly don't seek out organic seeds. I do seek out heirlooms and open pollinateds and things like that, but I don't fuss too much about organic seeds. Okay. What veggies should not be planted in the same container in the second or third year? Again, I would rotate. I wouldn't plant the same vegetable in the same container if you can avoid it, even 1 year after. And that, will kind of depend on how things do, but maybe at the most 2 years is all I would do. Even in those containers, and you're going to have to replace that soil in those containers probably every, 3 to 5 years anyways, but you might as well, if you can, rotate through and put different crops in different containers from year to year so that you keep those pests down and those other problems. Okay. Also, make sure you add a bunch of compost to your containers every year. Okay. When using peat pots for starting seeds, when using peat pots for starting seeds, do you wet them before putting in the soil? And when do you remove the straw from your strawberries? Okay. So with peat pots, yeah, I would. I don't like the peat pots. I don't use them at all. I have a few that I use for demonstration, but I don't like peat pots because they dry out so quickly. And as they dry out, they wick the water out of the soil. And so I'm not a big fan of those peat pots, but it's definitely not a bad idea. You could just set them in some water and that would wick up into those peat pots before you planted them. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of them. I use them on occasion when I'm doing things like cucumbers or squash or something like that, because you can plant them directly in the soil. But other than that, I use different containers for most of my seed starting. And remove the straw from your strawberries a few weeks before your last frost. So strawberries will stand up pretty well to frost. You want to get them, out and exposed to the sun and growing again. So I would say, maybe 3 or 4 weeks before your last frost would be the time to pull that straw off of your strawberries. Okay. What do I know about copper spiral stakes for energy in the garden? Nothing. Sorry, that's not something that I have any experience with. If the domes sit on the peat pots, is that okay, or do they have to sit on the tray? Okay, again, I'm not a big fan of peat pots, and I'm also not a big fan of domes. The reason why I don't like domes is because they keep you from getting the light close enough to the plants, and so you end up getting leggy plants. So instead of a dome, I just use plastic wrap, and you can reuse it year after year after year, and it will work out really good. So it would be okay if those domes were sitting on the peat pots. That would be all right. That's not a big deal. Again, I might avoid them completely. If you've got a good strong grow light that doesn't have to be down really close, then you're probably okay using those domes. But if you're using like regular shop lights or fluorescent or LED lights that are just kind of the regular lights, then you don't want those domes because they're too thick and you can't get the light close enough to the plants. Okay. How can you grow your seeds in March? So it depends on where you live. For us, we're zone 6B, almost zone 7. And we'll start, the snow finally melted off of our garden just within the last 4 or 5 days. And the garden's starting to dry out. And so I'm actually going to put in a few of my cool season plants just by seed. So we're going to plant some spinach. We're going to plant some beets and some lettuce and some carrots probably, and radishes. We'll probably get in this weekend. And then they may sit for a week or two, but they'll come up and get going. And the other thing that I like to do is get that soil warmed up. And you can do that a couple of different ways. You can warm it up using some plastic, clear plastic over the top, or like I've got some of those Rubbermaid totes, the clear Rubbermaid totes. I'll set those over the beds that I'm going to be planting in, and that warms up the soil. I actually, if you go on my Instagram channel and look at my stories today, I've been doing an experiment with those totes to see how much difference they make. And they warmed the soil. The soil that wasn't covered was about 50 degrees. The soil that was covered was 64 degrees, and 64 degrees is perfect for germinating most of the cool season crops. So you can do things like that, or you could put them in a cold frame. I also have cold frames, and the soil in my cold frames is about 71, 72 degrees. So those are all ways that you can get started in March. And then it really depends on where you live. I mean, people that are in like zone 7, 8, and 9 are already planting all kinds of stuff. So, it really kind of depends. Another question, what is a good seedling fertilizer and when do you start to feed the seedlings? So we talked a little bit about that. You start feeding the seedlings about 8 to 10 days afterwards when they first get their first set of true leaves. And there's several different fertilizers that I've used over the years that I like. The fish emulsion is really, really good. Miracle Grow actually sells an organic fertilizer, liquid fertilizer. I think it's called Miracle Grow Organics or something like that. I've used that in the past and it works well. And then there are 2 or 3 other kind of fish-based fertilizers out there that are not quite as strong. There's a crab one that you can use that are liquid. And then there's a new one that I've been trying for the last couple of years called Turbo Organics. And it seems to be working well with my seedlings. This is only the second season that I've used it, but I'm pretty happy with it right now too. And that's a liquid one. So any of those. Can tomatoes, cabbage, and potatoes be planted near each other? Yes, that's fine. There's no issue with that at all. How many dill plants should I plant with 40 tomatoes? Last year I planted basil and marigolds on either side of each of my 40 tomatoes. And when should I plant the dill? If not near, where should you plant it? Well, for me, I think it's a good idea to kind of just mix those herbs in and the flowers. So I wouldn't particularly plant them at the end of my rows. I would plant them in and amongst them. And possibly you may end up with the tomatoes overtaking those plants eventually, but they're there and they're present and they're helping. It's not 100% cure for pest problems, but I would mix them in is what I would do. What is a good fertilizer to use? I don't have a brand that I particularly recommend. I do like this Turbo Organics, and it's good for seedlings and for containers and out in the garden. I've been enjoying that, but there's a bunch of different Jobe. It's Jobe. They make a bunch of different types of organic fertilizers that you can use as well. So those are all really good. When I start, when you're using your seed starting mat without a heat probe, what is the best way to tell what the soil temperature is? I don't worry about it. I just put my heat mat on. My heat mat doesn't have a temperature control or a probe. It's only going to increase the soil temperature about 10 to 15 degrees. And so you're only going to leave it on until the seeds germinate, and then you're going to take it off anyways. And so it's really not, you don't need to be that technical with the heat mat. Just put it underneath, get the seedlings to germinate, take it off. Once the seedlings have germinated, all the seedlings in the tray have germinated, take it off, move it on to the next one. And that's all. You don't need to fuss and be that technical about it. In northern Utah, how do I get rid of grasshoppers? And you're surrounded by farms. We're not surrounded by farms, and we had huge grasshopper problems last year. Hopefully it will be different this year because we had such a hard winter here in northern Utah. But grasshoppers are a hard one to deal with without spraying. Chickens and ducks help if you're interested in having some animals. They would help significantly. Chickens are a little rough on gardens. Ducks are a little bit kinder to your gardens, but not perfect. They could help. Beyond that, especially if you're surrounded by farms, it's going to be pretty hard. I'm sorry to discourage you, but you can try some barrier methods. So you could put, light fabric grow cover over your plants, bug netting, things like that to try and keep them out as best you can. But they're pretty determined, and so that will help for sure. But you just kind of need to be constantly vigilant at trying to kill them the best you can and get them out of your garden. But if you're surrounded by farms, that's going to be pretty tough without using a spray, which I don't recommend. Any other suggestions for herbs or veggie combos, companion planting for pest protection? So just any of the flagrant, I can't say it now, the smelly herbs, okay? Any of those will help with, companion planting. So you should be able to get, things like basil, dill, mint, all the different types of mint, spearmint, peppermint, all of those. Marigolds do a good job of helping with plants. Nasturtiums also do a nice job, especially with squash bugs. So those are all good options. Do you have a video on seed starting lights? Yes, I do. If you go to our our education website, which is onlinegardeningschool.com, I actually have a free seed starting kind of primer course where I talk about lights on that one. So again, it's onlinegardeningschool.com, and there's a free course there that you can actually go check out. How do you chipmunk proof your garden, your vegetable garden? The only way to do that is cages. You've got to keep them out. You've got to exclude them. So putting, wire cages, something that has at least, chicken wire thickness of wire over your beds is really about the only way to keep them out. With squirrels and chipmunks and things like that, unfortunately, there's not much more you can do. A dog would help because they're usually going to stay away from a dog. And so if you have a dog that you keep outside for a lot of the time, that will help. But most of us don't keep our dogs outdoors all day long. But that could help as well. There are a few other, things like putting, pepper on your beds and some of those sound sensors and things like that. I don't know how really effective those are. But you could try a few of those. They have sensors that like turn a sprinkler on and spray them, or you've got some that will emit a high pitched sound that we can't hear, but they can. You could try some of those, but I honestly don't know how effective they are. How long should you leave the plastic wrap on? Again, you only leave the plastic wrap on your seedlings until all of the seeds are germinated. That's just there to create humidity and keep that top layer of soil moist until the seedlings germinate. So I will just leave it on until they germinate, and then we're good from there. Does anybody know if they sell wire bags or something to prevent squirrels from eating your tomatoes? Yeah, again, so the mesh bags, it looks like the mesh bags didn't help. Unfortunately, I don't know if I haven't seen any wire ones. How do you prevent moles in the garden? So you can prevent damage from moles by putting wire under your beds. That will help with moles and gophers. Again, you're going to put like a chicken wire underneath, but that's something you do when you start growing. Beyond that, you can they have some sound things that are supposed to help, or you can trap them. So there are traps that you can put in their burrows, and I've used those before, and they're fairly effective. I guess it just depends on your your thoughts on whether or not you want to kill a mole. That has been pretty effective, but you do need to get after them and try and get them trapped because they'll colonize. So you'll get more and more of them, but that's a good thing. Flooding them out doesn't usually work, or it just drives them to your neighbor's yard, which isn't nice either. So that's always a tough one, moles are. Okay, let's see. How are we doing here? We're about 45 minutes in. Whitney, let's stop with the couple of questions that we have left here, and we'll kind of call it from there. So this one is, I'm in zone 6. I heard you shouldn't move leaves and bushes due to the pollinators. I'm itching to start cleaning up in my yard and prepare my garden. Can I start cleaning now? The whole leaving the leaves thing is a bit on the controversial side, in my opinion. I mean, I understand why we do it and why we would consider that, but I would never leave your leaves on your lawn for sure, nor would I leave leaves on my garden itself, okay? I'm okay leaving leaves on my flower beds and under my trees and stuff like that, but I don't want them on my garden, because not only are they going to keep pollinators, but they're also going to keep, they're going to protect my pests. Your grasshoppers are going to overwinter there, your squash bugs, your vine borers, your snails and slugs. And so we don't want that debris in our garden. We want our gardens to be fairly clean. So there, there's plenty of places in our yards where we can leave leaves until later in the season that aren't our gardens or our lawns. And so I would, if it's on your lawns, I'd get it cleaned up now because it's going to take some time for them to recover. In your garden, I would probably do the same. I would get those cleaned up now. And then, you leave the leaves in your flower beds and places like that a little bit longer. Yeah, that's kind of my opinion on that. And it's a little bit controversial. Some people are all for leaving those leaves. And my opinion is you're causing as many problems as you are helping. So, and somebody will yell at me about that. Trust me, I did a video last year and got yelled at about it. So what crop should be planted in the same place? Oh, we already answered that one. How many potatoes should be planted for a family of 3 for a year's worth? Should I do succession planting? You could do succession planting with potatoes. You could get some started fairly early in the season. I'm actually going to plant some maybe this weekend, but in a cold frame. So they'll be in a cold frame. And so that's about 8 weeks from our first frost. We'll probably plant some more about 3 to 4 weeks before our first frost. And then we plant some more on our first frost date. I'm sorry, I'm saying first frost. It's actually last frost. I apologize. So you definitely could do some succession planting if you wanted. The biggest issue that you're going to have with potatoes for a year is keeping them. They're not going to last that long. Even in really good conditions, I've only been able to keep my potatoes good until about March. We finished ours up about 6 weeks ago, so we don't have any potatoes left. So if you're going to do that, then you're probably going to have to can them, which is fine. Just make sure that those have to be pressure canned. You can't water bath can them. You have to pressure can them. But you could do some canning. And how much for a family of 3? We reserve about 1/3 of our garden for potatoes. And that's about all the space I'll give to them. We love potatoes and we love having our own potatoes. And I hate the fact that I'm having to buy grocery store potatoes again now, especially organic, because they're freaking expensive. But I would, we grow and we have some special occasions, like holidays and things where our whole family's over. There's just 3 of us left here at home now, but when everybody comes over, we'll use a lot of our potatoes for some of those, Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners and things like that. But we plant, let me count. Our rows are 24 foot long, and we plant the equivalent of probably 4 or 5 rows a year, 24 feet long. And that's not enough for us. So it doesn't get us all the way through. We don't do any canning. We just end up eating them fresh, and they usually last us until about the 1st of February most years. So you'll kind of just have to gauge it and see, the problem is you really have to commit a lot of space to potatoes in order to be able to do that. So you might also consider some sweet potatoes. If you like sweet potatoes, they last longer, they store longer. So that could be a good option. How do you handle different seeds germinating at different times in the same tray? Kind of a pain in the neck sometimes. Right now, I've got to go up and deal with, because I've got some tomatoes that are way outgrowing the broccoli that are in the same tray. And so the tomatoes are actually coming out and around the light. So I'm going to have to deal with that. The way I deal with it is by having more than one level. So I have 3 shelves with different lights. And so when I get, like, for example, the tomatoes, which grow faster and bigger, they get moved to a shelf with a higher light. And then the other things that are shorter stay under those shorter lights. So that's how I deal with it. And do I have a video on wicking raised beds? I have seen those. I haven't tried those yet. Unfortunately, before I started doing this whole YouTube and internet thing, we already had our garden established. And now I wish that I had more space that I could experiment with some of those fun things. We are thinking about moving. And so if I move, we're going to be redoing a whole brand new garden. And so I will have a little more space and room to flexibility to play with some of those. But I haven't actually used the wicking beds. I've seen some videos on them and they seem to be pretty cool. But I haven't actually used one. So I don't have a lot of experience on that. Okay. All right. I think, guys, we'll call that about the end. Let me just see if we happen to have Any other quick questions here? Well, it looks like we're in pretty good shape. Okay. Thanks, guys. We had a pretty good crowd here. We were up to as many as 170. We still have 130 people here. I apologize for the mess up at the beginning. I'm sorry about that. I'll make sure that I send an email out with a link to this video so that the people that happen to miss it can catch that up. Thank you again to Honest Seed Company for sponsoring our prizes. Let me just list the names one more time. Sylvia H., Edward C., Doreen C., Sonia G., Linda W., Shelly K., Diane K., Lindsay R., Janet D., Christy S. Okay, you guys are the winners. We'll send you out an email within the next day or two with your prize. Okay, so that should come out. It's fairly soon with your. It'll be a gift certificate that you can use to. It's just a code that you'll be able to use on their website. So thank you again to Honest Seeds for sponsoring that. One thing that I did want to make sure that I let you guys know about, we do have a fun event coming up in late April. It's called our 5-day Get Your Garden Challenge, Get Your Garden Planted Challenge. And that's a 5-day event that we do with pre-recorded videos and a lot of fun challenge to kind of get you off your tail and get your garden planted. We used to do one in April, one in May. This year, we're just going to do one towards the end of April when it hopefully will fit for most people for getting either your cool season crops or your warm season crops started. And again, this is a fun little 5-day event, and we are starting to take names on the wait list. And so if you look in the description of this video, there's a link that you can click on that will take you over to our website, and you can get your name on the wait list for that. Again, we're about 6 weeks out from that, but I wanted to make sure that people knew that that was coming. Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Again, I apologize for the mess up at the beginning and that it didn't kind of work out the way I hoped, but we'll make sure that all the prize winners get an email, and you guys all have a fantastic day. Okay. And we'll be back next week with a regular video. We're going to talk probably about beets, and I've got a lot of fun stuff coming up with a lot of different videos. So we'll have quite a bit coming up. That's pretty fun. So, all right. Thanks, guys. Everybody have a great weekend. Happy gardening. We'll see you later.